A job application is not just a row in a spreadsheet. I think this is a mistake that many job search software these days makes. It treats an application like it's a static thing. So, a company name, a job title, a status, or a link. And all of this is fine if you want what is effectively just a tracker, but that is not what a job application feels like when you are the person applying. A job application changes shape over time. At the start, it is just a listing that you found somewhere, and then it becomes something you save, and then it becomes a decision, right? And then it becomes a specific version of your CV. Because in the modern world, if you're not changing your CV, you're not doing it right. And then it becomes an application that you submitted. And then if you're lucky, it becomes an email thread, and then maybe some interview prep, and then maybe a rejection or a ghosting or maybe an offer, right? And when software treats an application like just a row, it loses half the story. And this is the thing that I keep coming back to, is that a job application is a living object until it goes to rejected. It changes shape, and it shouldn't lose the memory when it transitions between these stages. It starts as a listing, but then it changes. Let's say, for example, I found a front end role at company X, and at first, it is just a listing. So maybe the first question is that where did I find it? So it could be LinkedIn or Indeed, or it could be any one of the many, many, many job boards on planet Earth right now. This source matters because later, sometime down the line, I might need to come back to this to see what they said. Then it becomes a saved job. I save it in a spreadsheet somewhere because I need to be able to come back to this. So now the question changes. It's not just what is this job, it's also the decision making of why you saved this job. So what did they want from me? What tech stack? What did they have visa sponsorship? Was it remote work accessible? What was the company itself? Or was it just that it looked less awful than the 40 listings I saw that day? And I think that reason matters. In most systems, this reasoning disappears instantly because it's not tracked. Next is a decision. Do I actually apply to this job? Is it worth applying to? Is it actually relevant, or did I just save it because I was panic scrolling job boards at 1 a.m.? What was the rationale behind why I liked this job? If you do decide to apply to a job, it then becomes a CV version because you're not just looking at a job anymore, you are tailoring your CV to match the job itself. So you are changing the version of you that this company gets to see. What do I highlight? What do I remove? What projects do I choose? What skills do I need to emphasize to look my best self for this company? Once that's done, it then becomes a submitted application. So now the question is, what did I send them? It might not be what is in my latest CV. It might be something that is actually specifically relevant for that job. What exactly did I submit for this job? If you're lucky, you might get an email back. So you need this context again. You need it for any interview prep that you might need. If you go to any steps, you might need it for a follow-up, and then you need all of this original context back again. The point is that these are not separate things. All of these are part of the same application, but it's just changing shape. Every tool that I found grabs one of these pieces and then drops the rest. So here's an example of something that happened to me. I applied to a job, let's say on a Monday, and on Monday, I know exactly why I applied there. And I remember the role, I remember the company because I looked into them. I remember what projects I mentioned on the job. I remember why it looked like a good fit. Sure. Then 2 weeks pass, and then you get a call from an unknown number. Hey, it's XYZ from company. Do you have a second to chat? You're suddenly like, oh crap, which company is this again? Because on that day, I applied to 10 different jobs. Is this the one that mentioned React? Or is this the one that had a sponsorship? Or is this the one where I mentioned an internship? Did I send a big CV, a small one? Where did I even find these guys? And this moment is the whole problem. The application didn't just disappear, my context disappeared. And this is how most job searches work. The listing is on a job board, and the CV is still in your downloads folder somewhere. It is buried under so many other things. Your status is somewhere in a spreadsheet. And the actual reason you cared about it is probably just in your head from 2 weeks ago that you've probably forgotten. And it is mental because all of these things are the same thing. So they should just be in the same place. It is still company X and it's a role that you applied for. But the moment you start applying, things live in different places. And this is why job hunting feels so messy. Not because of some kind of disorganization, but because you are treating it like three different things and a lot of it is just in your head. So there's a lot of mental pressure that you have to keep in mind. So 2 weeks later, when someone calls you back, you're not replying. You have to reconstruct the whole thing from memory because you just don't remember. And the funny thing is, the more volume your search needs, the worse the problem gets because you're not tracking 5 jobs, you're tracking dozens, or maybe these days, in some cases, maybe even hundreds. So this problem compounds. And every single one of these has its own listing, its own CV, its own status, its own set of emails and dates and notes and context. So the problem isn't just I need a better spreadsheet. The problem is just the whole thing around it, right? The problem is I just need a different place that is purpose built for this. This is where the product design end of things gets interesting because I don't think that the answer is one magical new interface. People already understand job boards, right? And people already understand lists, and people already understand Kanban boards, and people already understand detail pages, and people already understand email threads, and they understand notes. And the point is that we're not reinventing the wheel here. We're not reinventing some weird new shape for job hunting. The point is to keep the underlying thing the same. It is the same application, just in different views. So when I'm discovering jobs, it can look like a job board. When I'm comparing the jobs, it can look like a list. When I'm tracking progress, it can look like a Kanban board. And when I'm applying, it can show the listing, its requirements, and the CV and the next actions all in one place. I think that the bit that people don't understand or they don't realize, the question isn't, is it a Kanban board or does it have a resume builder or, for example, does it have notes? This isn't the problem. I think these are just shapes. The real question is this still the same application? Does the context travel between it? This is the difference between just tracking applications and actually carrying an application through the progress of time. So this is the idea that I'm trying to build around with JobOps. It isn't another job board. It's not an auto apply machine. It's not just a prettier spreadsheet. The idea is that the same application should appear in whatever shape makes sense in that moment. So for example, this is the job board shape. Here it looks like a job board. Jobs on the left and information about that selected job on the right. So this shape is familiar. Indeed does it, and LinkedIn does it, and so many other platforms do it. Because when you're discovering or reviewing jobs, this is a good shape. You see a bunch of jobs and you see why this is relevant. But this is already more than just a listing, right? So a job has now a source. It has a score of how relevant it is to you. It has extracted context in bullet points that are scannable. It has a briefer summary of the job description. It can be tailored right here. It can be applied to right here. It can be marked applied. So even at this stage, the job has already started accumulating memory. So it's not just a link to a job board anymore. The next shape is a Kanban shape. So the same application can then show up in a Kanban board. And it looks like it is being tracked across a board. So recruiter screen, then assessments and team matches and technical interviews and final rounds, and the most important one, an offer. An offer. But I don't want this to be a separate card that I manually create after applying. That's exactly the problem, right? This is the same application. You click into it and you reach the same thing that you would if you did it from the discovered page or if you did it from the applied page. This is just viewing the same application from the lens of perspective. The Kanban isn't the product. The Kanban is the one of the outfits that an application can wear. And then later, The application stops looking like a listing completely. Then it becomes notes and emails and documents and updates and questions, random details that you suddenly might need just weeks later on end. And it's still attached to the same job, and you can track the whole thing across the passage of time. I think this is the bit that most tools miss. After you apply, the application isn't suddenly over. It just transforms shape. So that's what I'm building. That is the entire product idea. A job application is not a row, it's not a link, it's not just a tailored CV. It is all of the above, and it changes over time. The more volume your search has, the more painful this problem is when that context is actually split between certain things.